Republican leaders are planning a replacement for Obamacare, as many fear the GOP will take the blame for problems that would ensue if the president's health care law unravels. The Supreme Court could strike down subsidies for millions of Americans to buy health insurance on healthcare.gov. Susan Ferricchio is chief congressional correspondent with the Washington Examiner. The administration says it has no plans to replace Obamacare. The Health and Human Services Secretary testified as such. So is it Congress's job to have a backup plan ready?
Well, absolutely. And it will be a political disaster for the party if the subsidies go away and millions of people are left hanging with their health insurance and the GOP doesn't do anything. Don't forget, John, the Republicans run both chambers of Congress. The public knows that they have been behind the effort to try to dismantle the law. They've always talked about repealing the law and replacing the law, but up until very recently, there really hasn't been a push in Congress to have cohesive plans in either the House or the Senate. Now, with this decision looming in the Supreme Court, everybody's going to be turning to Congress if those subsidies go away. They have to be ready. They can't be caught flat-footed. And I think the administration saying they don't have a plan essentially puts the ball in the court of the GOP to deal with this or suffer some very serious political consequences.
One of the arguments that was made in front of the Supreme Court was, hey, you can't undo this now because everybody's got it and everybody's going to be affected, and it'll be a disaster if you do, dismantle Obamacare.
That's right. You start an entitlement and then you undo it. It's almost impossible. And Republicans know that. And I think in both chambers there are plans that are being discussed that will give people with subsidies a sort of lifeline to keep them from having nothing after the Supreme Court rules. There's tax credits for people who are low-income earners or who are poor. There are other off-ramps for people who have subsidies and want to transition away from the program. Both the House and the Senate are working on ways to extend money for people to pay for health insurance. Because if this just goes away and suddenly you have poor people without health insurance, this is the last thing Republicans want. Don't forget, after the 2012 election, after Mitt Romney's devastating loss for the party, one part of the polling that really resonated with Republicans that they felt they needed to work on was that the public feels Democrats will do more to help them and care more about them than Republicans. The last thing they want going into 2016 is to have voters thinking they just don't care about them. Look what they did to all the people who were on health insurance and then lost health insurance. It creates talking points for Democrats. So I think there's going to be an incredible and tremendous effort to put together a plan that will keep poor people and low-income folks insured and able to pay for health insurance while creating off-ramps for the program and getting rid of some of the more burdensome parts of the law, such as the mandate. It's going to be very hard to do, though, and this is going to be one of the biggest testing moments for the party right now, if they can agree, both the House and the Senate, on what to do if the Supreme Court rules. And they don't have very much time. This decision is right around the corner, John.
Right. And as has been pointed out, Republicans have voted dozens of times, I think 50 times, to undo Obamacare, to try to dismantle it. But having something to replace it is the question. Tax credits likely would be the vehicle?
I think so, and that's a good one for Republicans, because they have long talked about the idea of allowing people to get tax credits for purchasing individual insurance policies, which doesn't exist now in the law. Don't forget, it's the employer who gets a tax credit now. So some version of that, I think, would exist in the plan, and it would help those who are earning well above the poverty level, but still not into the high-income areas. So it's a generous tax income policy that both sides are talking about in the House and the Senate. That's really all they can do other than just continuing the subsidies in some way. And I think there's a real desire on the part of the GOP to just end those subsidies and turn it into something else like a tax credit plan.
It'll be fascinating to see what happens. Susan Ferricchio with a front row seat there in Congress for the Washington Examiner. Thank you.
You bet.